Do you want to get going, or you can let, you can let everyone in?
Yep, they're busy joining at the moment. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our September WealthE Wednesday. It is an amazing evening to be with you tonight as we not only celebrate September, but celebrate the change of season. So depending where you are in the world, you are either experiencing the start of spring or the start of autumn, and we really hope that the new season is going to be an amazing one for you. We are very excited to have Scott back in the hot seat tonight, who's going to share everything about the life cycle of the investor in real estate and what that means to you, how you can use that to your best advantage. So we look forward to hearing from Scott. As always, I will be in the background making sure that I answer your questions or get Scott to answer them. So please just pop any questions you have into the chat box or the question box, and we'll make sure we'll do that. But in the meantime, please say hi to us. Let us know where you are joining us from. We always like to see where everyone is coming from. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Scott.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Lee. So a couple of things just to set the scene. I'm going to be load shedded in 1 hour's time. So if you don't know what that is and you're from around the world, that means that our government is inept and useless, and we don't have electricity. So I have my light, which is my camping light, and I'm running off my battery packs and stuff. So let's see how it all goes. So that's the first thing. The second thing I thought I would share with you, it's quite a cute little story, which we talk a lot about being global citizens. And my son yesterday found a toy that he wants. And so he sees the price and it's 400. So in his mind, it's 400 Rand. Oh, sorry, yeah, 400 Rand. So he comes to me and for the first time, he now wants to do all these chores on how to make money. And I've always been a big believer, if you pay pocket money to kids, you teach them how to be employees, because then they're only as good as they just wait a week or a month to get their money. And a lot of the courses I've been on and books I've read, you need to teach them about how to add value. And if they're adding value, then they get paid for the task. So anyway, yesterday he was cleaning my car, which is it was so cute because quite frankly, it's probably dirtier after it got cleaned than before. But the point being is he tried. And anyway, so he got paid his money for cleaning the car, and he put the cover on my boat and, all this. And then I thought to myself, 400 Rand for this toy that he wants actually sounds quite cheap. So I asked him to show me today the link, and I said, no, Jonty, it's not 400 Rand, boy. It's $400. And so that's actually quite a lot more money because rands and dollars are different currencies. So he immediately changed his tune, and now all the tasks today he wants to be paid in dollars. And so he's learning at a very young age that rands are nowhere near as effective as dollars. And he said, no, he doesn't want any more money being paid in rands. He wants it in dollars now. And I said, good, that's a good lesson. Daddy's never earned rands in his life. And it's a very good lesson to learn foreign currency. So I thought that was a fun little story to start off with, because, tonight we are going to be going through the life cycle of a real estate investor, the wealth spectrum, and how to use the personalized investor test to create freedom, fun, and impact you want to have in your life. And, for me, these webinars are really very laid back, if you want to call it that. So please ask any questions you've got. What I've done is I've put a bunch of things together. Lee and I in the WealthE Wednesdays have covered some of these topics already, but, repetition is the mother of skill. And, I was talking to someone a week ago, and I was on a webinar. In fact, it was Lee, it was your Women in Wealth webinar. And it was so interesting because it was the whole pay yourself first, have the discipline to, whether it was 10 or 20, or she said actually up to 50%. And I was talking to someone about it on Thursday night on WhatsApp, and they said, but you know all that stuff already. And I said, to know and to not do is not to know. Okay, and so again, the theory is like, if you understand something in theory, but you're not doing it, then you don't actually know it. And so tonight we're going to be running through a repetition of some of the things that we've been through, and some of the things will go a bit deeper. But I just thought that it'd be worthwhile going through this. And I thought it's quite interesting because starting with Jonty, who's 8, he's learning at a very young age that, let's start with this question. how do you make money? Because there's no point in talking about investing unless you actually know, unless you have money to invest. So the first question I ask you is, how do you make money? I've indoctrinated my son literally since he could walk or talk, how to do it. But I'd love to know what you think. And if you just type it in the chat box, I'm fascinated what people think around how to make money. So we've got work hard. Come on. There are loads of people on this webinar. You can't tell me Tandy Lynn is the only one who knows how to make money. Add value to more people than anyone else. I bought some flats and make money that way. Passive income, look out for opportunities. I create value. Invest in wealth migrate. Thank you, Gavin. Solve problems. Save 10% of what you earn to invest. So they're all good answers. And, you know, provide connections, which is the same way of saying add value, invest in property at a young age, serve others and invest, identify opportunities that grow your assets without spending too much time out of your own pocket, send your big money out to make little ones. What is money? Help others get what they want. So they're all right. And I think the point being is that what I taught Johnny from a very young age is that I probably learned that to succeed, you have to work hard. And I've spent a huge amount of my life working harder than anyone else I know, whether it was at school, whether it was at university, whether it being the fittest person on the rugby pitch, you know, or at work. And I suppose what I learned 2 years ago when I went to India is that doing your best and being your best are two very different things. And I'm reading quite a lot of books at the moment around actually the most successful people aren't the people that work the hardest. It's the people that are in flow and add the most value, et cetera, to the most people. And, you know, it comes from that Zig Ziglar principle. You can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And so coming back to the story of Jonty, you know, for me, it's about adding value. So when he comes to me and he says, how can I make money? And I say, well, how can you add value? And I've tried to indoctrinate him in that. So many of the things that people have put here, you know, helping others get what they want and, you know, et cetera. It's always the mindset for me is, you know, whether you're solving problems or many of the other ideas that came here, all of them are because you effectively are adding value. So I wanted to ask you a question. And some of you might have seen this slide before. What are you doing to be a global citizen? And why I thought the story tonight about Jonty was quite funny was that, you know, the guy's 8 years old, and with the mindset of saying, I want to earn dollars at 8, he's making good progress towards being a global citizen. And I hope you understand where I'm coming from. And what's also interesting is if you've seen the slide before, it used to say, what are you doing to be ready for 2020? I think we can all safely say that there wasn't a single person on the planet that was ready for 2020. And the question is, are you ready for the next 5 years? And we're going to do a whole webinar series, not tonight, on there were certain individuals that actually were ready for 2020. But what I meant by no one, there's probably no one that was on this webinar, including me, that was really ready for 2020. And my question really is, are you ready for the next 5 years? Because we've all got aspirations. We all want to achieve things. And as Tony Robbins says, you can achieve, people overestimate what they can achieve in a year and they underestimate what they can achieve in a decade. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is, you know, what do you do in the next 90 days or the next 100 days? What do you do, you know, in the next year? What do you do, you know, over the next 5 years? And I'll explain to you why it's so important for me personally. There's 6 things investors need. And again, you've seen this before. They need the belief. They need the knowledge. They need access and investment. They need a system. They need support and accountability. And ultimately, they need results. All the work is not worth it unless you're actually getting results. And for me, results equal wealth, which equals freedom. And, you know, it's really interesting because different people want to use money for different things. And some people will tell you they don't want money. And that's fine. They don't want money, but I guarantee you they want freedom. I guarantee you that even if they want to live as a hermit in the mountains, they want to be able to have the freedom to do that. And therefore, at the end of the day, what is wealth? Well, it's the freedom to make your own choices in terms of where you actually are. Some people get to decide to try and do it on their own. I fundamentally believe in the principles of nature and the laws of nature and, you know, bird flying on its flock. can fly 70% further than a bird flying on its own. And equally, Deepak Chopra came out with some research this year, actually, where if you try to do something on your own, you've got about a 50% chance of succeeding. If you try to do it with a partner, you've got about a 60% chance of doing it. And if you do it in a like-minded group of people, you've got a higher than 70% chance of doing it, which is absolutely fascinating. And that's where, we created things like our inner circle so that we can work together to help each other. And there's 4 different parts to it. You've got education, you've got investment, you've got community, and you've got purpose. And we're going to talk tonight about the eWealth Pack. But this is something we put together when I was on Necker Island. I learned about life hacks. And if you've done anything in terms of the 4-hour work week, it's all about life hacks. You don't have to do it the hard way. So again, that principle of work hard. Well, do you think Richard Branson works harder or less hard than you? Seriously. Now I know what he does. He wakes up at like 5, 6 in the morning and he plays tennis with a professional tennis star on Necker Island. And then he does some work until lunchtime. He generally has lunch with his guests and then he goes kite surfing every single afternoon. He doesn't work. The rule on Necker Island is you're not allowed to work in the afternoon. So I virtually guarantee you work harder than Necker Island, you work harder than Richard Branson. But the question is, who made more money in the last quarter? You might even argue that he lost more money than you, which he did because of the airlines. But the thing I learned from Tony Robbins years ago is, most people complain that they've got big problems. And what Tony Robbins said is, who do you think's got bigger problems, Richard Branson or you? And so quite frankly, you want bigger problems. And so what the eWealth Pack is a life hack. It was all about, ways to do stuff quicker and to get the information. We're going to go into the WealthE test tonight. We're going to spend time on it. So I'm not going to spend too much time going through it, other than to say that really for me, what we tried to do is none of us want to be on a journey where we put in a box. All of us want to be on our own personalized path. And tonight we're going to share some detail around it in terms of everything. So I'll go through this in more detail when we do. And then the 8 steps to wealth was very much a micro degree we put together, and everything we're going to talk about tonight is actually there for you to be able to go and do it. So if you want to take down this link, and I don't know, Lee, if you want to post it in the chat box for people, but it's the link to the eWealth Pack. It's quite a lot of valuable of information, and it's worth probably thousands of dollars, but what's worth more than anything is your time, because this is a compilation of 20 years worth of gathering information and putting it all into one place in a life hack for you. So the last thing I wanted to say was that, and I'm just giving you an idea of the different resources that are out there before tonight we go into the detail, because we created the GPS, and a GPS, just like when you're in a car, it helps you know where you are, you help decide where you want to get to, and it helps you get from A to B. And that's what our wealth GPS is about. So, when I'm talking tonight and when Lee and I are talking about the different things that you can do, I just wanted to share with you before we got started on all the different resources that are available. And there's not a single thing that I've shared with you there that you can't get access to. And then finally, in terms of the big picture of Wealth 5.0 and where the world's going, I'm going to spend quite a lot more time on that because there's 5 different components to it. Ultimately, if you want to get started, we created the starter pack. There's a way to go on the platform and literally invest in some deals. And the nice thing now is it's all digital. You've got access to digital wallets. I've actually got 4 different entities, 1 personal and 3 offshore structures, and it's all in one place. And if we've got time later and you want to see it, I'm happy to share it with you. And then lastly, it's all about the human connection, having our wealth consultants and people being able to talk, one-to-one with people and help them hold their hand, etc. I know for a fact I'm actually moving my medical aid at the moment because I used to have private banking for medical aid, and now I've been moved to a call center because the company was taken over, and I'm moving because I want a private banking experience. I want to be able to speak to a human being, and that's what our wealth consultants are there to provide. But Lee didn't ask me to come tonight to talk a lot of theory, so I'd like to get into being a little bit practical. And I just wanted to see here, Rachel said yes, but he did once work very hard to get to where he is. So I completely agree with you, Rachel. I'm not saying you shouldn't work hard. What I'm advocating, and trust me, you're looking at someone that has built his whole career on working hard. But what I've learned in the last 2 years is that working hard and working smart are often different. And you can actually often achieve more by working smart than working hard. So one of the things Richard Branson did is he did work hard, but one of his, and again, I've had the privilege of learning from one-to-one with him. This wasn't a book I read or whatever. I learned this when I was on the island. I've had 2 weeks with him on Neck Island. And I said to him, what's his success strategy? And he said, it's simple. Find the right person, set them up for success, and get out of their way. And so I tried to do that in 2015, and then I came back in 2016. I said, it didn't quite work. What did I get wrong? He said, oh, you missed out one step. Have a feedback loop. So again, find the right person, set them up for success, get out of their way, and have a feedback loop, to see if they're succeeding. And, so to your point, Rachel, yep, sure, he works hard, but actually what he works hardest at is his relationships and empowering others to succeed. And that's why he's got 400 companies, because no man on the planet no man or woman on the planet could run 400 companies on their own. It's impossible. Someone said, yeah, he's just turned 70, saw him wearing a mermaid or a mere fin with other guests leading a group chat. Yeah, look, he's awesome. I mean, I have to say, of all the people I've ever met, he's the one I idolize the most. And why I say that is because I just told you the lifestyle he lives. He lives on a tropical island. He's got 400 companies, 8 of them are billion-dollar companies. He's got a massive amount of purpose. He's doing a huge amount to change the world for the good. He's got a great family. He's got great kids. I don't really know what more you could ask for in life, quite frankly. And most importantly, to Jay's perspective, and I'm sorry, there's only one way to say this, he has a shitload of fun. So, if you're there, you're going to get pushed in the pool. In the week we were there, about 10 people lost their cell phones. Because if you have a cell phone and you bar a pool, you're going in the pool. And he's a naughty kid. It's not like he's doing it to show off. He's a naughty kid. And I mean, when I was there, he was 65. And it's interesting because most of us, I'm 43 now, and most of us have forgotten how to have fun and be naughty. And he's learned how to do it. So I'm completely going off the track because that wasn't the essence of tonight. But it's a good metaphor in terms of the working hard. So I wanted to talk about your wealthy journey. And it's one of the 8 steps we're going to talk about tonight. But this was actually some slides that I made back in 2005. So I was teaching people in London how to invest in property. And what I realized was that the life cycle that we all go through, our lives, and the life cycle of a property investor are very similar. So on the left-hand side, you've got the learning curve. Okay, and at the bottom, you've got financial independence, freedom, and abundance. So the steps, if you were being born, would be birth. Then you'd have infancy. Then you'd be a toddler. Then you'd be a teenager, a young adult, maturity, midlife evaluation. That's when you go and buy your Harley Davidson at your 40s or 50s and get divorced and all that sort of stuff. Your golden years, and then ultimately your legacy. So that's the good path. Some people don't get there. Some people get to maturity and do a U-turn. They just age and then they die. Okay, and you can die back being an infant, literally in the same thing, or you can leave a legacy. When Richard Branson dies, he's going to leave a significant legacy on the planet when the majority of our population and all of us, unless we do something purposeful in this world, other than the friends and family and relationships we have, no one will remember the impact we had. So let's look at it from a property perspective. Well, for me, the birthing stage is when you leave home. You start renting, you start earning and can save a little, you go on a course, you start walking the streets, and most do very little. So what I mean by that is I bought my first property when I was 22. I was astounded by my wife's sister who lived at home till she was 30. But I want to be clear, she hadn't left the birth stage yet, even though she was 30, because she hadn't left home. She wasn't renting. She didn't know about earning and money and all that, going on courses, etc. So, it's not an age thing. It's when you get started. And so, my wife and I argue about this, but, I'm going to kick my son out of home as soon as I can, because the bottom line is, you get them on their journey as quickly as you can. The second one is infancy. You buy your first home. There's plenty of fear. You struggle with the purchase. You struggle with understanding the process. I remember when I first did it, I didn't even know what rates and taxes and stuff were. You waste lots of money. You often don't buy very well. It depends on the information. And you're very close to cash flow death. It's tough to survive and often ask for support from parents. So I remember in 2002 when we bought our first house, and it was a week because me and my mate bought it together. And, all our mates were out partying. and we had no money. Like, we had to be at home, like, and buy some beers at the local bottle store, and we couldn't go out. And I always say property is the best bloody way to, to save, because, the mortgage doesn't really put up with your excuses. You either pay it or you don't. But it's a very good learning lesson. Then you go to a toddler, and that's when you get your first one working, and you get some confidence, and you buy another one. You've got no systems, you have cash flow issues, you've got less than 5 properties, you focus on capital growth, and you have no structures in place. So when you're starting out, it's always about the capital growth. You go, I bought it for 500 and now it's 550, and I'm so clever because I made 50,000 Rand, or dollars, or pounds, or euros, whatever. A teenager is when you get problems with finance. So in most countries around the world, after buying 2, 3 properties, up to 5, they do what's called income-based lending. So no matter how much your properties are earning, they actually look at how much money your salary is earning, and you start to get into problem with financing, and you start to learn to focus on cash flow. You attend some courses. You start to realize that getting financing from the bank shouldn't be about you and your individual earning capacity. It should be the business plan for the property. You start to think laterally to succeed, so adding value like we discussed. You start meeting tax and structuring experts. You start building a team, because you realize that, like, managing your property is actually not the best use of your time. You start exploring international property and or commercial property. And you might notice that the majority of people don't even get to this stage. Like, exploring international property and commercial property is probably 1% of the population currently. Anywhere in the world, it's probably an exaggeration. I don't know, Lee, if you want to give me your opinion, and or if anyone else wants to give me their opinion. And I don't have the research, but I would be very surprised if it was more than 1, at best probably 2%, that actually ever get beyond teenager.
Yeah, I personally think that you're being quite generous saying 2%, because I just think people get so consumed with the problems with finance that they just never ever get further.
Yep. No, I agree with you. And I just wanted to point out that's why, it's not like a human being. Like, all of us are going to die, whether we like it or not, or maybe not actually, based on exponential technology. But anyway, that's a separate conversation. And whereas when it comes to property investment, this might be you. You might have one property and it's your home, and you never even get to being a teenager. Then you get young adult, which is where you use your capital growth. You buy your first international property. It's all about cash flow. You buy your first commercial property. It's all about cash flow. You start to get structures, get it right. You keep buying properties, but only if the cash flow is positive. You have a working formula which you replicate, and you have a team of people. Okay. Now, you got a choice. This is the intersection. The maturity is where the banks view you as a sophisticated investor. You can leverage your assets to gain more properties. You have a reliable team. Your deals come to you. So you don't even go looking for deals. They come to you. You have great cash flow. Time consuming with individual investments. So again, you're trying to look after all of them yourself, and you're looking after doing big deals in consortium. So you start to figure out how can you use your time more effectively. And that's again, very, very few people get to this point. Okay. And then the next one's the midlife evaluation. You find that the properties, and I've seen this too many times where people start to think about retirement. The properties are very time consuming, and they wonder if they should sell and consolidate. They've got great cash flow. They maintain what they have, or they move to aging, okay? Or they move to golden years. That's why it's a split. So a good example of this was my wife's mom bought 4 properties in Bryanston, and when she passed away, her father decided that it was too much admin. So she had all these properties like in Bryanston that today would be worth millions of rands each, and yet they sold it because it was too much admin. That's a classic example of going in the wrong direction versus consolidating it, building a team, and moving it away from being too time consuming. The golden years, so let's go the positive way first. This is the zone of knowledge and wealth creation. You're investing globally with best of breed partners to achieve maximum results. You need to work with younger, energetic players. So I'm learning this more and more. A guy like Bill Rawson's amazing. One of the most sophisticated property players in South Africa. He has a leader at every generation. So he has one in his 20s, he has one in his 30s, he has one in his 40s, one in his 50s, and he's 66 or 67 now. It's a mindset of bringing in the younger people that have the energy, but lack the experience, and they can actually do the work. leverage the knowledge and the assets and the resources to take advantage of opportunities. And just the example of the 84-year-old, where I met this 84-year-old years ago, and he made 100 million rand. He came to me to invest, he came to me to invest 100 million rand. Now, that was 10 years ago. And I asked him what he did, and he said, no, he cleans computers. And I was like, wow, you must have created some fancy virus system. He said, no, I literally have people clean computers with, like, flannels. And there he was investing 100 million across England, Australia, and South Africa. And he didn't even need the money anymore. It was just because it was part of the game. That's what I mean by the golden years. Another good example is a guy called Peter Fenstra, who's one of our shareholders, who I was in Australia with him, and there was a good opportunity he wanted to invest in. And he phoned Investec, and he needed 600 million Australian dollars. And they gave him a pre-approval over the phone without even seeing the property. Like, that was based on him and who he was. That's a classic example of where you've built your reputation and things can come easily to you. The deals come easy. You can put the pieces together. Legacy, the zone of fulfillment and contribution. This is where you're living financial freedom. You're contributing to society. It's all about generational wealth, and you're passing on the inheritance to the people close to you. So, for me, this is the up curve. This is the one you really want to focus on. And there's specific steps all the way along this journey. And by the way, I didn't make up these steps. It just took a bit of common sense to map the pattern, if you want to call it that. Now, on the other side of the fence is where you go to aging, which is most of the mortgages are interest only. And I've learned the hard way, actually. I've got my first property in England I bought in 2002, and it was interest only. And so we've earned great cash flow out of it for the last 20 years or 18 years now. But it's an interest only mortgage, and it comes up in 2022. And I was talking to my friend who I own it with, and I was like, wow, like, although we've enjoyed the cash flow, imagine if we had done interest in capital, how nice it would be to have that London property paid off. You can't remortgage because now you get to your 60s and you can't remortgage. So the only way to release the equity, sell the assets. Okay, this is bad planning. This is bad financial planning. You end up having to sell the assets and you live off the capital, which generally you'll invest fairly poorly. You live off the capital and the cash flow, and it's literally like a death spiral because, all that has to happen is a couple of shocks that you didn't plan for, and or woe betide, you live a bit longer than you planned for, and then you've got major problems. And that's where death comes into it. And that's where you haven't got the right structures. Your property is passed on in your personal name to people in the will. There's large death duties left to those who receive the property and often can't afford and sell. And I use the story here because we actually owned like half the properties in Field Street, which was the main street in Durban, because my, great uncle was a very, very wealthy person. And sorry, Lee, I just want to check. Have you lost me?
I lost me. I don't think we lost.
Okay, so you can still see my video and stuff. Okay.
Lost you.
So anyway, so my great grandfather, doesn't matter how many greats, I can't remember, was a very, very wealthy man.
Yeah.
And he owned half of Field Street. But the problem is he owned it all in his own name. And so when he died, because of all the death duties, they had to sell off the majority of the property. I mean, to put it in perspective, we owned a lot of the land north of the Umgani River. Okay, like, the whole of Umhlanga? Yes, we own that. and that's a classic example of just terrible financial planning and no generational wealth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, Lee, just to put in perspective, I mean, I could spend probably doing a whole course on all these different parts, but I just wanted to give the overall synopsis tonight, and then I'm going to go into the investor test of how people can move up this path in a personalized way. But does it make sense so far? And are there any questions in terms of anyone, what anyone wants?
It makes absolutely perfect sense. I think you're going to have a lot of people jumping on and saying, yes, let's have a whole webinar on this one slide and just dive deeply into that. Everyone is saying they'd like copies of your slides. So we'll see what we can do about that. and getting that out to everybody. But there's no questions at the moment, Scott.
Perfect. Okay. So, and one comment here, which I quite liked as well. Jay said, in the golden years, we can teach others to flatten the learning curve for better health, quality of life, to live well longer. I completely agree with you. So, Jay, and I think that's all about purpose. You know, I was, it's going to be the Wealth Insight for Friday, so maybe I shouldn't give it away. But it's the three things that basically give people the most fulfillment and happiness in life. And I'm not going to give it away. So make sure you watch the Wealth Insight on Friday. And what's so interesting is that I think with technology and webinars and everything else, you think about how much information can be shared. Like, I'm a big gatherer of information. I consume a hell of a lot more information than most people I know. And if I can condense it and share it with people, then we can help you all go up this curve decades ahead of where you would do it if you did it all yourself. And by the way, I don't do it all myself. Like, all the different WhatsApp groups we're part of, and all our wealth partners and the different investment communities I'm part of, like, I'm just gathering information, but it's not mine. People are sending it to me, and it's phenomenal. Like, it's absolutely phenomenal. So that's where I get super excited about being able to accelerate this growth curve. And really what gets me out of bed in the morning is that I figured this out. I mean, I built these slides in 2005, so I would have been 28 years old. And I'd figured it out. I haven't changed a single slide since I was 28. And you can see they're not great quality slides. But I actually kept them like this on purpose because, you know, at 28, I figured this stuff out. And ironically, I was probably only a infancy or toddler. And I knew that, like, I needed to get into commercial and, et cetera, et cetera. And that's really where Wealth Migrate came from. Okay, so let's rock and roll to the next thing. And I'll come back if there are questions, et cetera. So one of the things that I've learned to really accelerate everything we've discussed is getting the right information and the right partners, like it's your team. And you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you read any book, and it's about the information and the partners. So as Roger Hamilton said, there's a tremendous amount of information on the internet. I mean, you can find any information, but what people need is direction. And so what I've tried to do here is give people direction, okay? Because like someone, Michael Honeysett's on this call as well, and Michael's a good friend of mine. He's at a very different stage from Seepo, okay, who's also a very good friend of mine. But they're at different stages. And therefore, if Michael does, or sorry, if Seepo tries to copy what Michael needs to do, he will fail. And if Michael does what Seepo needs to do, he'll also fail. So it's very important that there's no perfect way for everybody. And it's very important, just like your GPS in your car, you've got to know where you are before you start trying to take the next steps. And the other thing I learned from a guy called Lex Sisney, which I've learned over the last 4 years, but I just reread his book, is that if you try and jump a few curves, you also can flame out. Okay, now I believe you can accelerate your way through the graph through the right information and partners, but I don't think you can jump from being, birth to golden years. Like, it takes time to learn. The beauty that I love about where the world is now, you learn while growing. You don't, or learn while investing. You don't have to wait. Like, you don't have to go and read all the courses or do a degree or whatever. You can get started. And that's how the easiest way to get from A to B, from your birth to your legacy. And I don't know, I should challenge myself here, but I still think that that's probably at least a 10-year journey. It's that whole rule of 10,000 hours, et cetera, et cetera. I'd hasten to say that no matter how good technology gets and education online and gamification, that it's going to get less than 10 years. But I do believe in our lifetime, what used to take 40, 50, 60 years, I see no reason why it can't be compressed into a much shorter time frame. Lastly, yeah.
Sorry, I just want to, there's a question that feeds into this. Is Kathleen wants to know where Wealth Migrate sits in that spectrum.
Good question. So let me go back quickly. So for me, and again, remember that when I built these slides, and again, Lee, you must tell me if I should update these slides, but I actually quite like showing what we built in 2005, because Wealth Migrate was it was a thesis that I had written actually, but it wasn't a reality. And I think to her point, Wealth Migrate's very much serving people now that are rather than in terms of young adults and going out and trying to buy all your properties and doing all the hard work, Wealth Migrate is really helping people in the young adult stage, in the maturity zone, and for others that are wanting to become global citizens and build global portfolios, it's really giving them now the time to go into the zone of knowledge and wealth creation, etc. So again, one of the things that's important is that we've realized, and you know, we're probably sharing a little bit too early here with our community, but we see it where like Wealth Create, okay, which has always been like our entry level, which would be $0 to $1,000, would become a couple of the first couple. Wealth Migrate is the mid-market. It's like the $1,000 to $100,000. And then Private Wealth Global is going to be $100,000 plus. And so I think it was Kathleen's question. We've tried to create different brands and different messaging, even though we're using the same infrastructure, to help people depending on where they are on their journey. I don't know if that answers the question, Lee and Kathleen.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Just quickly here, I learned a long time ago from a guy called Ian Fife. I was very lucky, very privileged. He took me under his wing and flew over to London a number of times and presented our events. Now, he was pretty much he was the property editor for the Financial Mail. He was one of the most respected people in South African property. And he said, how do you deal with uncertainty? Now, it was interesting because I was learning this in the dot-com boom bust, the Afghanistan war, because it was all around 2001, 2002 when I was buying my first London property. And he said, through knowledge. You know, he said, you can worry too much about where the markets are going up or down, or, you know, is South Africa going to collapse or not? Is America going to collapse or not? He said, it ultimately comes down to transactions. What is concrete and specific? You know, property's been the biggest store of wealth for ordinary people. And if you just look at the transactions, you know, they can be predictable and conservative as an asset class. And that's, you know, it's just an interesting way of looking at it, because a lot of people don't do something because they're scared of making a mistake. So I want to go to the 8 steps to wealth, because I want to get practical on what we've just discussed. So why did we create the 8 steps to wealth? Well, take what we built in 2005, and then we wanted to create a course to help people do it. So I don't have time tonight. Let me just see the time here quickly. I don't have time tonight to go through this, but we do have a gift that we'll give people, which is called our wealth code, okay? And I believe there are 12 lessons that wealthy people are taught that the 99% aren't, okay? So the first one is focus on income generating assets. The second one is don't lose money. The third is asymmetric risk reward. The fourth is tax efficiency. The fifth is diversification across markets, within markets, across time, currency. The fundamentals of investing. You can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. Appreciation is key to happiness. Your mind creates your destiny. Your life, nurture it. Chaos is your best friend. In chaos, there's opportunity. That's an important one for where we are in the world right now. To risk nothing is to risk everything and be constantly learning. Now, Lee, we did an entire webinar just on these 12 points, so I'm not going to repeat them. I just wanted to chuck it in tonight as a gift. If you don't have the wealth code, I suggest you get a copy of the wealth code by typing in wealth code. Right. So this is the investor test. I actually did the investor test in collaboration with Suraj and Roger Hamilton from Genius U. And we own the IP, the intellectual property. However, they built the test for me on Genius U. So I know it's to the frustration of the team, and I know it bugs Lee tremendously. But if you do the test, it takes you to the Genius U platform. And if you click on that link, it's a free test. You can go and it's 25 questions. It'll take you no more than 20 minutes, probably even less. But it's where you have to start, because you have to understand what's going to happen. And what basically happens is it's then going to give you the 5 pillars of your wealth spectrum. Okay, so your personal wealth spectrum. So let's look at what I'm talking about here. So if I go in and look at this report, why is it not opened up? What you basically got is you've got an investor test, which is your personalized path. And let me explain to you why. So, you know, obviously when this is you, it'll be filled in. Let me actually show you one that was filled in just as an example. So this is just one that I use as an example. So it's who's the person, what's their number, when did they do the test. And what it's basically going to tell you is on the left, okay, you've got the life cycle of a real estate investor. We've just discussed it. Okay, now you might be starting to see how the different pieces of the puzzle all come together. On the right, you've got the wealth spectrum, which was actually created by Roger Hamilton. I'm going to share a gift with you tonight as to where that you can figure out where you are on this schedule. At the bottom, you've got your passive income. You know, do you earn $1 passive income? So what passive income means is you don't work and your investments are making you $1. Okay, now if you're making $1, you might think that that's nothing. I would disagree with you. The majority of the world doesn't know how to make $1 passive income. And there's some great stories by Vishen Lakhani, the guy that, another brilliant book, which is the Code of the Extraordinary Mind. And he said that when he started his business, he was making like $1, and then he was making $3 and it could afford a Starbucks. And then it was, you know, $10 and it could afford a Subway sandwich. And it's a good mindset to get into, you know, like don't poo-poo the $1 because $1 can become, you know, $100. And then it can become $500, and then it can become $1,000. And you'll notice that like $10 to $20,000 is somewhere mid-market. Because I believe that, you know, on $15,000, you can live comfortably in England, Australia, America. You're not going to be a rock star. You're not going to be on a private plane, but you can live comfortably. And then obviously there's the $100,000 plus, you know, passive income. And then, you know, it's a very different ballgame. And then at the top is that depending on how much passive income you've got, and why these two correlate completely, it'll determine your freedom, your fun, and your impact. Because, you know, if you're earning $1 a month passive income or $1 a year, you don't have a lot of freedom. No disrespect, but you're not going to have a lot of fun necessarily. And it's very hard to help others when you're trying to survive yourself. So if you're down here in victim, survivor, worker mode, it's very hard to help others, you know, versus when you're a trustee, composer, legend. Now, Lee, I want to ask you, because I sometimes lose people, often. Now, let me rephrase it. I don't sometimes lose people, I often lose people. When I designed this graph, as you can see here, there's a whole bunch of different components that come in. And I think very few people actually, without an explanation like this, actually see that although it just looks like a simple graph, it's actually four-dimensional. And then inside it, you've actually got the 5 major paradigms of wealth. So you've got your investment quotient, your connected quotient, your financial quotient, your systems quotient, and your purpose quotient, which we'll discuss now. But can you actually see the 4 dimensions, and then the personalized part is in the middle, because every single person is somewhere on those 5 different paradigms. And then equally, they're somewhere in the wealth spectrum, they're somewhere in the life cycle of a real estate investor, and they're somewhere in the passive growth. And all 3 of those then impact on your fund freedom and impact index.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would encourage people to do it now and then wait a couple of years and do it again. I have got my original test and I've got the test that I did a couple of months ago, and they are vastly different because as you grow and as you work towards what you want to create, it changes, and it's quite exciting to see. But I have to admit to everybody that the first time I did the test, I had to book an appointment with Scott for him to explain it, because even though you get your results, I just looked at my graph and went, that's interesting, and I have no clue. So if that's where you're sitting at the moment, please don't be concerned at all. Just rather see it as a tool to help you create anything that you want to.
I think also, Lee, to your point, and sorry, there's a question here from Eric, is that passive income monthly or yearly? For me, Eric, it's monthly, because again, $10,000 to $15,000 passive income would put you about middle of the scale. If it was yearly, you're not gonna do very well with $1,000 a month. Like you really don't have a lot of freedom with $1,000 a month. So it is monthly, because again, what I've learned about wealthy people is that cash flow and income is everything. And to Lee's point, you know, I just wanted to point out that, and I'm going to show you a copy of the book just now, but there's a book called Think and Grow Rich, which is the best book ever written on money. It was written in 1937. More people that have become millionaires have quoted that book. And quite frankly, if you've ever done any personal development, literally, whether it's Tony Robbins or Robin Banks or any of them, it all actually comes back to the principles that came out in that book. And what happened is the gentleman went and he actually, a guy called Andrew Carnegie, and he actually got paid, Andrew Carnegie paid for the writer, Think and Grow Rich by, I'll get it just now. What's his name? I can see you talking there, but I can't.
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, Napoleon Hill. And he spent like 30 years interviewing 50 of the wealthiest people and then wrote the book. And my point being is that I've read that book at least 6 times. I've listened to it on audio running Comrades. It's a 12-hour audio book. And if you haven't figured that out, it took me 12 hours to run Comrades. And what I realized is that every time I do the book, I actually realize there's a whole deeper level that I didn't even realize the first time. So much so, and I'm not going to give away the title of the book, but right at the end of the book, he actually says, if you understood everything I'm saying, you didn't have to get past the title. And I was like, wow, like I only got that like on my 2nd or 3rd reading. Okay, and my point being is that, to Lee's thing is that, don't be overwhelmed by a depth of a topic. You know, again, I spoke about the rule of 10,000 hours. Like I've studied wealthy people and wealth and money and property for 20 plus years. In fact, it's even longer than that because I was doing it when I was a teenager. And so, but it's a good place to start. And then you'll realize that the more you learn, the less you'll know and the deeper you'll actually want to go. So it's just a mindset you've got to have. Right. Let's look at what it comes from. So I'm a big believer that nothing is created uniquely. So don't think I'm some super clever guy that's come up with some great test. If I was acknowledging that, it would be bullshit. Okay, all that we've done between myself and Roger Hamilton and a number of other people is just bring together the patterns that are already in the world and make them accessible to people. So the laws of nature, like it's common sense. You know, birds go together, water temperature, soil, earth, nature. Like I'm not going to teach, this is not a geography or biology lesson, but the laws of nature exist. You know, gravity exists. No matter which way you look at it, I drop that, it drops, you know. The I Ching. So I would highly recommend going and looking up Roger Hamilton. There's a link here when you do the test. And all around Carl Jung, again, I don't have time to explain it, but I spent quite a lot of time in the East. And the thing I respect about the East is they've got thousands of years worth of knowledge, and it is incredible what they've got. So again, to start from scratch with our Western understanding with like the last 100 years is ridiculous, quite frankly. And the I Ching is really interesting. And then lastly, there's fundamentals. You know, there's fundamentals to investing, there's fundamentals to wealth, there's fundamentals to real estate. You know, it's so interesting, like Warren Buffett, when we had the dot-com boom bust 20 years ago, he didn't invest in any property companies, technology companies. And he said, well, you know, how would I have known if this was the car boom in 1915, who was going to be Henry Ford and who were going to be the other 399 companies that went bankrupt? My point being is that, you know, things like the fundamentals of income, he called bullshit like then. Now, and what's really interesting is that times change and fads change, and people always say, oh, but it's different now. It's Corona. This is the latest one. It's Corona. Like, it's different now. And it's not, because there are fundamentals. There are fundamentals to business. There are fundamentals to investing. There are fundamentals to real estate, and they don't change. So this part's hopefully fairly self-explanatory, but why mindset is so important. It talks about Joe Kennedy, and you probably heard me if you've been on the webinars talk about the wealth he created in the heart of the worst depression the world's ever seen, and also Sir John Templeton, who was the best investor of the 20th century. And then it goes into the 5 pillars. Now, the investment quotient is all around your investment skills, okay? And again, you can read all about it. You can go and do the wealth dynamics test. You can watch the weekly wealth insights. But what's really important is that if you do the test, and if I come back to let's just use Suraj's one here. Oh wait, hang on, why have I lost? Where's Suraj gone? Yep, there we are. So on the investor quotient, if you look here on the right, investor quotient, you can see that Suraj was sitting between 60 to 80. Okay, you with me? 60 to 80. You can see it's in the intersection between 60 to 80. So when you go down to the test here, it's very self-explanatory, hopefully. You're on the investment quotient and you go to 60 to 80. So for your mindset, this is what you should be focusing on. And for your knowledge, this is what you should be focusing on. Now, if you're 0 to 20, you should be focusing here. Okay, and if you're 20 to 40, hopefully it's fairly self-explanatory. Now, one thing, Lee, you need to hold me accountable to is that I did this test 2 years ago, and obviously we've created a lot of content and more stuff in the last 2 years, and we actually need to update this report with you know, things like the wealth pack are not even in here, I don't think. My point being is that you know, if you're wanting to learn, your IQ is all about growth. And this is why it is made of wood. Okay, so again, you have to understand the I Ching, and I don't have time tonight, but wood is the place to start. It's the spring of the cycle, and it's the what you need to learn. So again, there's no point in saying, oh, I want to become an investor and just run out and go be an investor. You don't even know what you don't know yet. Like, you've got to learn, like things like Think and Grow Rich are like critical to your success. You know, things like the 8 Steps to Wealth micro degree, or the beginner micro degree, or you know, or some of the books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, or whatever, you know, are there to really help you. Okay, so that's all what your investment quotient is about. Okay, and it talks all about it here, and you can go through and read all about it, etc. Then you've got your systems quotient. Okay, and this is all about your personalized systems. Now, to come back to the person, I forget her name, that asked what is wealth migrate? This is the part most people don't have. This is the part I've realized most people that are successful do have, and the majority of us don't. And what a wealth migrate or any platform actually helps you do now is systemize stuff. Like, there's systems inherently built in that you don't even have to know anymore. It's best practice, best of breed, and it's there. But unless you've got systems, you know, there's no perfect system, but not having a system is like a recipe for disaster. So again, it talks about the systems and what you need, and then it talks about where you are and what you need to do. Like here, calculate your passive income. You know, the majority of people don't even know what their passive income is. And then you get the point with the goals and the financial. And this is quite important in terms of targets and, you know, how to get there. The next one's your connected quotient. Okay, like, how many people are you adding value to? How many people are you adding value to and they adding value to you, and vice versa? Okay, how connected are you? And it's really interesting because someone who's joining our team from San Francisco is a Lord. Now, if you know anything about Roger Hamilton, they're very good at numbers and data, but they're not good at people and systems. And when he did our test, his connected quotient was like nowhere. And you see how the overlaps work. So if he wants to be successful, he either needs to find people that can go out and connect, or he needs to figure out how to connect himself. But you're not going to do it on your own. And collaborative investing, what is it all about? And there's a whole thing here on collaborative, you know, it's all called your CQ, and it's your who. So I didn't answer the one above, which was your, where's it gone now? I've lost my own thing. It's your SQ, but I don't know. Oh, here it is. I don't know why it's not in bold. But your SQ is your how. Okay, it's your steal energy. Okay, so you can go and read all the stuff. You don't have to learn it. Your CQ is all about your who. Please just make a note for me, Lee, that your SQ needs to be bolded. And it's your who, and it's your fire energy. It's about people. And then literally what you do. Like, where are you at? What do you do? How do you create investor circles? You know, if you're here, or, you know, here, and maybe it's about giving back. Here it's about a lead investor. It's about mentoring, you know, etc. And then this is from Roger, which I love. It's about your impact. Where are you having an impact? Are you helping one person? Are you running a company? Are you impacting a country? Then you've got your financial quotient. This is the longest one. And you can see the wealth spectrum here. And you can actually go and do the wealth spectrum report. So the link is in there. And I've got it open somewhere. Where's it gone now? There it is. So this is the link that I'll actually just put in the chat box for everyone, where you can go and do your wealth spectrum report. And I've learned a huge amount from Roger, so I'd really recommend this. And then basically you come down, and it's all about collaborative investing. We explain what that is in the 5 different principles. We explain the whole evolution of it. There's a whole bunch here. And then this is something I learned originally from a guy called Hunter Strayer, which was the 7 laws of investing. And I've updated them based on my experience. But it's all about your IQ. It's your FQ, it's your financial quotient. And then ultimately it's about literally law 1, law 2. So this is your longest one, because it's got law 3, law 4, law 5, law 6, and law 7. Okay, and ultimately this is where it brings it all together. Okay, in terms of your FQ. Okay. I'm just trying to look, where is the FQ part? I can't find that either, where it was, which part of it is. Sorry, there's so much stuff here. It's hard to do this fast. FQ. Oh, there it is, your when. It's your timing. it's your when. So, do you invest in a deal now? Do you wait a year? While everyone was waiting in April, Jeff Bezos invested $4 billion to take advantage of COVID and has doubled his wealth since March. So he's gone from 100 billion to 200 billion since March. And that's a classic example of timing and FQ, because he knew the market was right, his business was right, and so rather than running away, he invested heavily. And then the last one, and probably the one that I care most about, and probably all of us should care most about, is your purpose quotient. What's your PQ? Why are you here? What's your big picture? And there's a whole thing around learning here and mastery. And ultimately, if you don't know what your Akiga is, Akiga, I don't know, Ikiga, I can't say it. Oops, shit. Two swear words all in the same time there. But anyway, but you can go and do your passion test. There's the UN goals, etc., etc. And this really is all about your purpose. And this is your driving. Your PQ is your why, your guiding light, and will ultimately determine your long-term success. More importantly, the flow of water, your own personal fulfillment. So there are a whole lot of layers here that I don't think everyone realizes how deep this actually is in terms of what you can do. And then ultimately it comes down to your freedom and your passive income. And then lastly, the last thing I want to say is that a lot of people get the sequencing wrong. So if you're a toddler and you're wanting to run the Olympics, do you just like put on your running shoes and start training for the Olympics? You don't. You have to learn to like crawl, and then you have to learn to walk, and then you have to, go to school and learn to run some races. It's the same thing here. You start with your what, then you go to your how, then you go to your who, then you go to your when, then you go to your why, then you go back to your what, then you go back to your how. It's a cycle. It's just like the seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter, spring, summer, autumn, winter. And that's the only way to go from birth to legacy. And to finish off around purpose, there's a company I love called B1G1 where you can actually go out and have purposeful impacts around the world. And like I said to you, you can click on all these different reports. Everything is hyperlinked in the report. And then it just gives some next steps and stuff that people can go and do. Different people that we follow and add value. So Lee, it's a 25-page report. And like you said, a lot of it is generic. But the part that's important for people where it becomes personalized is that depending on where your table is, so the generic part is the 5 pillars. Like that doesn't change because the 5 pillars are the 5 pillars. But what does change is where you individually sit, and then also what you need to do. And in my opinion, for Suraj, when he did this test, he needs to aim. If he's in this section, he needs to aim in this section to go to this section. If he's in this section, he needs to aim to go to this section. If he's in this section, he needs to aim to go to this section. But if you remember what order you do it in, you don't do it like a circle. You do that one first, then you do that one, then you do that one, then you do that one, and then finally you do that one. And then once you've done that, you go back to this one, and then you do that one. And it's an order. There's a sequence. You have to follow the sequence. Now, you might say to me, why is it all over the place? And it's actually got to do again with the I Ching, where you've got like spring type and people type energy, which is on the far right. And you've got systems and steel energy, which is on the far left. And you've kind of got to go from one energy to the next to go up the wealth spectrum. I don't know if that makes sense. It doesn't work in a circle. Yeah, if there's load shedding and everyone loses me, I'll have my candles. Okay, so I'm conscious of time. I can come back and answer questions. So really tonight, what we've done is you can see here, this graph, you've got it, it's your what, it's your investment quotient, it's your mindset and knowledge, and your energy is wood. Your 2 is your how, your systems quotient, it's your personalized systems, your energy is metal. 3 is your who, your connected quotient, your collaboration and partnership, your energy is fire. 4 is your when, your financial quotient, your financial investment in real estate, your energy is earth. 5 is your why, your purpose quotient, your purpose, your energy is water. And at the middle, it's your double WQ. It helps you achieve the wealth you want in your life, and the energy is spirit. So now you've just seen 20 years put together in one report. And that's obviously the report people get. Now, when you know where you are, that comes back to your wealthy journey. And now you need to map out what you want to do. And I did do a whole webinar at the end of last year on goals. So if you want to go and watch it, I recommend you do. But just some highlights. I'm a very big believer in the fact that you create the future. You know, there's that great saying I've heard, and I think it was Van Gogh, that says he dreams his painting and then he paints his dream. And I always like to show this picture because people, you know, really can understand what I'm talking about. But I have a vision board, and it's on my laptop. It's my goals. It's pictures that and this was a boat that I wanted to buy. I literally went and found a picture on Google of the type of boat I'd like to buy. And about 9 months later, I went to the boat people and I said, I want to buy a boat. And they said they all sold out until March. And I said, no, but that's not good enough. Like, I don't want to miss summer. And they said, well, we got one boat coming down on consignment, but you can't choose anything. You can't choose the colors. You can't choose anything. And I said, okay, I want first option. I hadn't seen it, hadn't seen the colors, everything. I nearly fell off my own chair a week later and there it goes, load shedding. So now, this is where you now improvise. And I'm now camping and presenting at the same time. So anyway, good, you can still see me. And so to show you, this was the picture. Okay, this was the picture of me, this was the picture of the boat that I found on the internet, literally like 9 or 10 months before. And this was the boat I got. That's my wife and my son. Like, look at the colors, like they are identical. Okay, look at the color at the back. Look at the way it is. Look at the colors at the front. Look there at the front there. Look at the front here. They're like identical. It's so uncanny that it's unbelievable unless I can actually show you. And so when I say the goals, is like, what are you thinking? And I mentioned this book, Think and Grow Rich. You can get this free. If you've got no money, you can download this on Google. We've actually, with our inner circle, Lee, we've shared the ebook. I've even got the audio if people want access to the audio. Tony Robbins, Think and Grow Rich. Sorry, not Think and Grow Rich, Awaken the Giant Within. You know, absolutely brilliant. The best book I've found on goals. And then The One Thing, another fantastic book in terms of actually getting your goals. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole goal setting thing, but it is a scientific formula that if you know what you want, you're going to be able to get there. And there's a whole webinar on it, but I just highly, highly recommend that you go out and do it. And, you know, if all the Fortune 500 companies do it every quarter, you know, why are you not doing it? You know, my father taught me men, so let's just say people, become what they dream big. You know, if you dream of having a passive income of $1, you'll get it. Okay, but maybe you should dream of $100,000 a month. Okay, and you might say, Scott, that's ridiculous. I'm not interested. Fine, I don't care. Whatever your dream's your dream. And so again, the question is, what's your plan? And that's where, you know, in the goal planning, I went through how I do all my goals, my life goal, my year goals, my quarterly goals, my weekly goals, my daily goals. I'm not going to do them again. You can either go and do the micro degree, the 8 steps micro degree, or you can watch the webinar where I went into goals in depth. But I've got my overall goals right through to when I'm 60. And when I did it for the first time when I was 28, 60 was like dead. So now I need to extend a few years on. You know, you got your annual goals and then you got your quarterly goals. But I think what Lee asked me to do, which was really interesting, in about 2 or 3 months ago, we did a half-year review. Because one of the things I do every year is what's your future vision, what's your vision board, what's your daily routine. And we actually started something not a year ago, sorry, it was in December last year, called our 60-day challenge. And it's amazing how people respond to challenges. And, you know, every 60 days we run this challenge. Now, according to Oxford University, you need to do it for 66 days. I don't know, Lee, maybe we should change it to 66 days. You know, we came up with 60 and my gut feels we stick to it. But my point being is that, you know, I set myself a challenge in the last 60-day challenge. I was in a terrible place. I was in the middle of COVID. I wasn't looking forward to work. I was overweight. I was just gutful generally, which just means pissed off. And in 60 days, I lost 13.4 kilos. I did no alcohol. I ate healthy. I did exercise 5 days a week. And in terms of personal growth, I did an audio book. I did 6 Mind Valley courses, 3 of which I've finished. Sorry, 4 I finished and 2 I started. I did my daily prime and I did my journaling. And it was like a metamorphosis for me in terms of changing. And I know, Lee, you put in your one now that you want to do sleep, and I highly recommend you do that sleep one. So for me, your flight path is the journey you need to choose. If you're going to fly an airplane from here to London, you got to have a flight path. If you're going to fly from here to London or here to Moscow or here to Joburg, they're three very different flights. And that's where I work with Richard Neff. So he's my business coach, and there's no person that I know in the world, person or team, that's successful without a coach. So if you don't have a coach and you want to be successful, you're kidding yourself. And a good example that he always does for me is the 100-day challenge. So when a new president starts in America, they always work on the first 100 days. When a new CEO joins a Fortune 500 company, they always work on the first 100 days. So he keeps saying to me, what is your 100 days? And what I realized was that although there's 4 months left this year, and someone put it up there a little bit earlier, there's 160 days or something left this year. Considering that everyone's had a hell of a hard year, I think most people will be on leave over Christmas, which basically means I've got plus minus 100 days, okay, to succeed this year, okay, and or to finish the year on a high. And I would challenge you to say you probably have 100 days as well, okay, if you want to have a nice holiday at Christmas. So what Richard Neff has me doing now is saying, okay, well, what are you going to do for the next 100 days? And the question I've been asking the team and Lee, in all our team meetings and even at the board, it's like, right, forget about the rest of the year, forget about what's happened, forget about where we want to go next year. What are we going to do in the next 100 days to make sure that we get momentum going into next year? And I came up with a concept just yesterday, which I'm super excited about, which is, we've talked a lot about Society 5.0, which is the whole Japanese paradigm shift of where the world's going. And I'm going to share a little bit about it just now if you want me to. Investor 5.0 and Wealth 5.0. And suddenly occurred to me, what about Scott 5.0? Okay, and why shouldn't we have Lee 5.0 and Rachel 5.0, Jay 5.0? And it's quite interesting for me because we had a 2020 vision, which was a 5-year plan, and we haven't achieved our objective. We've made progress, but we haven't achieved it. And so I look at it and I think, well, sod that. Like, that's not good enough for me. Like, how am I going to really achieve it in the next 5 years? By the way, I'm 44 next February. And if you put 5 years on that, 5 years from now, I'll be turning 50 in 2 months. So the 5-year period is literally what am I going to achieve by the time I'm 50? And it just really all worked for me to say, well, it's time to work on Scott 5.0. And the commitment that I've made to myself over the next 60-day challenge is that I'm going to be completely clear of what Scott 5.0 is all about, okay? And the way I see it, there's going to be 5 different parts to it, between wealth and family and health and, et cetera. And I'm going to get very clear on what I want to achieve by the age of 55 years for me. And so effectively the end of 2025. So it'll be 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. Yeah. So the end of 2025, and get very clear on what I want, and then work backwards on what would need to happen in the team, the company, my personal life, et cetera, et cetera. And so my challenge to you and my invitation to you is that I'm going to be working through this for the next 60 days. And I'm happy to share how I'm going to do it. And not a lot's going to change in terms of what I've showed you, in terms of the goals and the life visioning and everything else. But what I'm going to do very specifically, and what I'm doing with my business coach, is I'm going to get into the detail. What do I have to do? So where do I want to be in 5 years? Then what do I have to do? What are the 5 years? What are the milestones that have to be achieved? So to give you an example, what we did years ago, which Roger Hamilton helped me do with our future visioning, was he took, if we go to 2015 and you go to January, and we literally said, what's the 2020 vision? Where are we going to be in 5 years? And so what we did is we had the 2020 vision for the company. Okay, where do we want to be in 5 years? Okay, we then had the 5-year plan. So what did we have to do each year for 5 years? And it was broken down between people, systems, revenue, business, etc. And then it was broken down into what do we actually have to do in the next 12 months? Okay, and then finally it would be what do you have to do in the next 100 days? Okay, and what I realized is that I haven't done this properly since 2015, not at a personal level, not at a business level. And it's time to go back and to redo Scott 5.0 and where I want to be, because this is a selfish thing. I don't care which way you cut the cookie. It's for you. It's not, my plan is not Lee's plan, and Lee's plan is not my plan. So you've got to do this selfishly. And then if you can find a way where your plan can be aligned with your mission and your purpose, that's what you call flow. And that's when extraordinary things happen. And so for me, this is what I'm going to be working on over the next 60 days. And the reason I'm working on it over the next 60 days is that if you take that's September and October, if I'm very clear on what I want and where I think the business should go, then it also will help us make the right decisions before the end of this year as to what the next 12 months next year looks like to help us achieve that. Now, if everyone at an individual level's done it, we've got a far better chance of the company, the team, the individuals being in flow. And if you don't know what flow is, I would highly recommend you go and listen to a book that I've just been listening to called The Rise of Superman, okay, by Kotler. And it's all about flow. Now, I've been studying flow for 10 years. I'm useless at it. I'm playing off a 36 handicap because I'm nowhere near to where I want to be. But that's one of the principles I want to change in terms of Scott 5.0 is getting in flow, doing what I love, sitting in the dark, in load shedding, sharing all this stuff. This is not work to me. I absolutely love doing this. Sitting in boardroom meetings is the complete antithesis of this for me. So I should do less boardroom meetings and more of this, as an example. Then you've got to get started. At the end of the day, if I've shared one thing tonight, there's however many people online, and yet I'd love to know how many of you have actually done the investor test. Thanks, Lee. I see you put in there the Rise of Superman, which is brilliant. But you've got to get started. You need to evaluate how you're doing. You need to track your progress. And you've seen this before. I go and, literally, where am I at? What are my numbers? But more importantly, Richard Neff, every time I see him, I check in with him once a week. And he's like, right, where are you at? On your 100-day plan, you had 3 things. Have you done it? Yes, no. All 3 things. And, of my top 3, I'm well on track with 2 of them. And my 3rd one is wobbling a bit. So now I need to put all my focus into that. And that's what you do in terms of tracking your progress. Following the laws of nature, I think, is self-explanatory. And then finally, I don't believe in the whole thing that you spend your whole life working and you get to, 70 and then you can retire to the beach. In my mind, the world's changed. Just today, I paid for, well, I didn't pay, but I secured 8 tickets for the British Lions for category A tickets to the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd game. I've booked 10 days in Witstrand. I'm going to have a lovely holiday at Christmas, et cetera, et cetera. I certainly don't believe it's all about, making it for 20 years. And actually what I'm starting to do more and more is that actually living a little bit. And again, it's because of that book, The Rise of Superman, is that if you're in your flow and you've got your creativity, you're actually going to come up with much better ideas. So a good example is yesterday. I've now agreed to go riding with some fathers on a Tuesday morning. And from 9 till 11 yesterday morning, I was riding. Now, people might fault me and say I'm not working hard, which I don't think is fair because I worked till midnight on Monday night and midnight on Tuesday night. But what was really interesting is I came up with Scott 5.0 in my coaching session with Richard Neff at 12 o'clock yesterday. So after spending time riding and energy and stuff I love, I came up with Scott 5.0. And I think that Scott 5.0 is going to have a tremendous impact on me personally. But I also believe it's going to have an impact on our company, on our team, and on our community. Because if I can get everyone to be clear on where they want to be in 5 years and we can align it, then we're going to be able to go a hell of a lot faster than people off in different directions. And so again, this is covered in quite a lot of detail, but how do you actually allocate so that you can have fun, you can pay your interest, you can have your capital, and you can build your assets, and there's a whole science behind it. So Wealth 5.0, we're going to actually be running a whole webinar series. We have done a couple of webinar series, but I'm really excited. What is the time there with load shedding? I can't see. And we're going to be running around and talking about Wealth 5.0 and where the world's going. It's about your impact, your creativity, your high touch, your high tech, and your digital. If any of this stuff tonight confused you, reach out to one of the wealth consultants, and they'll be able to help. In terms of the next steps, book an appointment with one of them. Go and talk to them. Have an investment strategy session. If you want to get started, look at the starter pack, which has everything we spoke about tonight actually included. And people can literally get started from $197, in terms of that process. If you're wanting to go and do the deals, the deals are on the platform. I know these deals are not the live deals at the moment. We do have, just on the deal side, we are moving to a global compliance structure out of Europe. And so while we're doing that, we've actually just put the deals on hold. It's short-term pain for long-term gain because it'll give the investors much better protection and regulation going forward. And so if you go to the platform at the moment, we've got a couple of alternative investments, but in terms of real estate deals, we've actually put them on hold for 30 to 60 days, just while we get that European structure up and running. And then lastly, I wanted to share with you a gift, and that is the invitation to the webinar series we're going to be running for the next 2 months, basically, which is really going deep into what is Society 5.0, what is this digital transformation. We've been talking about this for 18 months. In fact, I've been talking about this for probably as long as anyone's been on these webinars. Just today, I was talking to Richard Dunn in Australia, and he goes, yeah, we were talking about blockchain in 2016 and tokenization, and everyone thought we were absolutely crazy. Well, now it's happening. It's happening mainstream in Australia and many other countries. And COVID's actually accelerated this. It hasn't decelerated it. So, you really need to understand the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. What is Society 5.0? What is an Entrepreneur 5.0? Why has it changed from unicorns to zebras? If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then I suggest you come along to the webinars. What is an Investor 4.0? What is an Investor 5.0? And just to give you some context here, if I open up the file here, and I know Lee, we haven't actually. Oops, that's not what I wanted to be sharing. What you basically look at here is Amazon. If you look at Amazon, it's grown by 80% since March. E-commerce has gone up 42% in India over COVID. Musk is now worth over $100 billion in the top 5 in the world. And it's not only the US. The guy in India that started investing in 2000 in tech companies and telecoms is now one of the top 5 most wealthy people, and the same in China in terms of Tencent and Alibaba. And the question I ask everyone is, did they start 20 years ago, or did they start this year? Did they get lucky this year, or have they spent the last 20 years building towards that? And really the whole purpose of this webinar series is to take the patterns and to learn. Willem has done some great webinars on exponential organizations. And the reason that they've got such dramatic growth, 10xing or more their competitors, is because of this EXO framework. And so we're going to be running through this. And that's what we call Wealth 5.0. I'll be going through all the principles of Wealth 5.0. And I'm going to leave it on this screen for a while. And you can actually go to the link there for the first webinar, which is next Wednesday or Tuesday, I can't remember actually, the 9th. So today is the 2nd, so it's Wednesday, next Wednesday. And it's what are the similarities from 2000 to 2020? What did the major players all do 20 years ago when most of them went out of business? And just to give you an idea, if you go to that link, the team has very kindly gone and built the landing page, and you can actually go and, you can reserve your spot. You can go and see all the different things. What happened in 2000 and 2020? History repeats itself. What did Amazon do that none of their competitors did? What did Alibaba do that was significant in 2000? What did Elon Musk do in 99 and 2002? What did Mayoshi Son do in 99? I mean, he's just raised the largest venture capital fund of over $100 billion. What did Naspers do? What did the dot-com boom actually help? What are the 7 instrumental patterns that you need to know? Based on COVID and Wealth 5.0, what can we learn from history? What are the structural shifts? And what do you do next? How have these mindsets, information, and actions enabled you to really take advantage of the next decade? It's all good and well understanding all the theory, but what are you actually going to do in the next decade? And how do you get involved in Wealth 5.0 type businesses? And you can go and read all about it. It's all there in terms of the links. And so I'm not going to read them through. They're on the screen, but you can actually go and see. As Lee said, I've got to be careful with my wording. It's a 7-part series, but it's not necessarily, you don't have to kind of do the first one and then the second one and then the third one. There's 7 different pieces that are coming together. I would highly recommend doing 1 to 7 in order, because there is logic to it. If you think about it, what's the pattern from 2020? What's an EXO business? What are the 8 trends, technology, society? What is the changing world order according to Ray Dalio? What is profitability? Why is location no longer important in property? And how is this affecting the whole fintech sector? The session with Roger, Society 5.0, Entrepreneur, Investor, Wealth, what does one actually focus on? And then ultimately coming together with a panel at the end to understand. And Gillian said this moved way too fast for me. And I apologize, Gillian, because, racing against lockdown and when my battery might or might not die, who knows? But I think, Gillian, the one thing I want to give you peace of mind is that, you've heard me say this before, I guarantee it, but listening tonight is probably like drinking from a fire hose, you know, and it's a hell of a lot of information. And what I've really tried to share tonight is that there's, you know, 20 plus years worth of experience, just my own. And then it's not only my own, it's Lee's experience, it's our team's experience, it's Roger Hamilton's experience. You know, it's not my stuff, it's bringing it all together. And what I tried to share with you right in the beginning was that that's why we've got the inner circle. That's why we've got the micro degree. That's why we've got the e-wealth pack. That's why we've got the GPS. People need to realize that there's no quick way to get wealthy. It does not exist. And the invitation tonight, if you're completely confused, is just to calm down, do the investor test, and take one step at a time. Like, you don't need to understand everything. In fact, if you understood everything I said tonight, I would be amazed. And I'm not going to put Lee on the spot, but if I was to ask Lee to redo the webinar, this same webinar tomorrow night, you know, my guesstimation would be that, you know, there's a lot more in this. And I'll tell you a story quickly. When I got Hannes Strayer to London years ago in 2002, 2003, he did a day's presentation, and I listened to it the first time and I loved it. So I then persuaded him to come to London. And I listened to it the second time and I was like, right, I've nailed this thing. Like, I could present this, it's easy. And then I listened to it the third time and I realized I was only at like 60%. And I listened to it the fourth time and I realized I was only at 70%. And then I listened to it the fifth time and I realized I was only at 80%. And, you know, I'm probably still nowhere near close to 100%. And I think my point being, for Gillian and for anyone else that's feeling a little bit overwhelmed, is that it takes time. But the only thing you have to do, there's only one thing you have to take away from tonight, is that you've got to get started and you've got to make a commitment. And so if you do nothing else, download the investor test and do the investor test. If you do nothing else, like, because at least then you kind of know where you're at, and you can kind of take it from there. So Lee, that was all from my side. I want to look through here and see if there's other comments or questions that I've missed. I'm happy to answer anyone's questions or any comments or thoughts you think that I should be raising.
Scott, I think you covered a whole lot, and there's a lot of people on here who are saying that they really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Can they have the replay? I think absolutely. We will be sending out the replay, and it's very important for you to go over it. As Scott said, start off with the investor test, but from there, I know that your interest is going to be going to want to take further. So the recording will be shared with everybody that attended the webinar and all our groups as soon as it's downloaded. And Neela, to let you know that I will look into that for you, and I'll reach out to you personally too, and just chat with you around that.
And I think also, just thanks, Lee. I really appreciate you putting in all the different links and everything else. You know, we're inviting people on a journey. We're a community. You don't need to figure it all out tonight. You know, if you go to Facebook, you know, join the groups. In terms of sharing the slides, I'm not going to put them out publicly. I will share them with our inner circle. There's a huge amount of value that is in here, and that's the whole idea of our inner circle, is for them, you know, them to receive extra value. Obviously, the webinar tonight is free, but you know, we like to go deeper with our inner circle. And to be fair to the inner circle, I've done a whole bunch of webinars that have just been for the inner circle, like the goal planning, like the leadership mastery, etc. So I won't be sharing these slides publicly, but for the inner circle, I will be sharing them. And then someone said, yeah, you said to watch the Wealth Insider on Friday. Yeah, so that's YouTube. So just go to YouTube. In fact, you can actually go to scottpicken.tv and it'll take you straight to the YouTube link. So it's literally www.scottpicken.tv, and it'll take you to my YouTube channel, and just subscribe to the channel. And every Friday I bring out a Wealth Insight. So what I try and do with that, Peter, is I have the privilege of dealing with wealthy people all day long. I also spend a huge amount of time reading, learning, you know, being on my own webinars, etc. And so I try every Friday to bring one snippet. It's like a 4 to 5 minute video on one topic. And to be honest, I don't pre-plan them. It's not like some big long list where I'm on number 1 and now I've got to get to 20. It's literally like, right, what's the most interesting thing I learned this week, or what do I want to share? And this week, the one I've got lined up for Friday is, as I said, it's about that fulfillment and the 3 things that, so I've just finished that Rise of Superman, which has studied flow and the most high performers in the world. And ultimately, the book summed it up in three things you need to get the most fulfillment out of life. And I thought that's a wonderful wealth insight to share with people. You know, what's the point of having all the money in the world and not feeling fulfilled? Cool. Anyone got any questions? Yeah, we really, I mean, to Lee and Lee's comments, we really appreciate everyone's time. I know that everyone's time is extremely valuable. I'm super excited about our next webinar series. It's something that I'm deeply passionate about in terms of the future and where things are going and how people can participate. And, you know, a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, like working from home and working from Neisner and being on Zoom and working with load shedding. Clearly, I got to get myself some battery packs. But my point being is that, you know, COVID's accelerated all of that. I mean, house sales in Neisner, Plet, Cape Town, are going through the roof because people have realized they don't have to live in New York or Sydney or Joburg anymore. They can live in a small town and run their businesses, etc. And, you know, my attitude is 42% of people have gone online and started doing e-commerce. How long do you think it's going to be until there's online investing? Now, I want to be clear that everyone that's on this webinar is still the tip of the spear. I mean, literally the tip of the spear. You, the early adopters. But mass adoption is coming, and it's coming fast. And that's what the 7 webinars are going to be about. Okay, so Andeli's asked, was on the marketplace, can you explain the investment IRR and cash on cash? So in very simple terms, Andelia, a cash on cash return is that if I invest $100 and the cash on cash return is $10, it means that I'm going to earn an income of after costs and expenses of $10. Okay, so 10% of 100 is 10, which means that I'll earn, you know, $2.50 a quarter. Positive passive income. Okay, so the cash on cash return is the actual income return that you earn from an investment. The internal rate of return takes into account that income, and it takes into account the capital growth. Now, without you ask me to dumb it down, there's actually 27 variables that are taken into account, like time value of money, inflation, the time period of the investment, et cetera, et cetera. But in simple terms, what an IRR does, internal rate of return, is it helps you compare an apple with an apple, or even an apple with an orange. Because if you're trying to decide, should I invest in this property, or should I invest in gold, or should I invest in cryptocurrency, an IRR actually helps you compare different investment assets in terms of a combination of income and capital growth. I don't know, Lee, if there's anything you want to add to that, but that's my best attempt at dumbing it down.
Yeah, that is a very good attempt. Thank you, Scott. And Delia, what I am going to do for you is I'm going to ask one of our wealth consultants to reach out to you tomorrow and have a conversation with you where they can answer that in more detail for you and make sure that you do understand the difference between those. Gavin has asked how close we are to seeing the Wealth Migrate mobile app. So Gavin, as you know, we do have it on the list. It is not at the top of the list. So it's not going to be seen to for a while yet. That we are taking care of that through our partner think tanks that we are busy dealing with at the moment, but we will keep you updated, and an app is definitely the way that we do want to go. So it is in the process. Scott, a question for you. How do you plan from a perspective of somebody who's already 60?
Yeah, so I think just to Gavin's thing as well, to add to what you said, Lee, is that we've only got a small tech team at the moment. And one of the things I wish I had $4 billion like Jeff Bezos to have multiple tech teams so that we could bring out functionality a hell of a lot quicker. And actually, when we look at our data, more than 70% of people are still going on from their laptops, not from their mobile phones, when they're actually looking to invest and go through the process. So for us, it's about making sure that process is highly effective and efficient before we start worrying about an app. As we drop down the different investment categories, then obviously an app becomes critically important as well. You know, when someone's investing $1, they're only going to do that on their mobile phone. To the question around being 60, you know, my attitude in this conversation is that we all know the sooner you start, the better. Okay, so whether you are 20, 40, 60, or 80, the sooner you start, the better. However, there's no point in crying over spilt milk. And you know, if I talk about a 10-year journey and you're 60, you know, I see no reason why you can't start now and put yourself in a far stronger position by the time you're 70 than where you would. And you know, I'm not going to give you all the cliches, but you know, the gentleman that started KFC, you know, started when he was 65. You know, there's plenty of examples. The guy who started Alibaba started when he was 40, Jack Ma. So, you know, not everything happens from, you know, people like Warren Buffett who started when he was 13. Now, if you're younger or you've got children, you know, again, I remind you of how I started off the call tonight. My son is 8 and he's now asking for dollars or not rands. That brings tremendous joy to my heart because he probably knows more about currency than 99.9% of South Africans. But to the person who asked the question of, you know, about being 60, I honestly believe it's never too late. I mean, what's better than even starting to feel like you're in control? I know certainly for me, Lee, with the 60-day challenge, you know, the getting back the feeling of control and, you know, losing weight so that I'm feeling much more healthy and doing exercise and doing the Mind Valley stuff and, you know, which is the power of the mind stuff. I feel like I'm in so much more control. And that's where like Scott 5.0 excites the hell out of me. So, you know, whatever your age, don't underestimate, like saying, right, in the next 60 days or the next 100 days, I'm going to create a plan. I'm going to start. I'm going to aim for my first $1 passive income. And if nothing else, whether you're 60 or 80 or 100, who cares? Like, it's far better to be in that situation than trying to rely on the government or a pension, you know, company that you don't trust or whatever. You know? So I don't know. I'm a big believer in being in control of your destiny, and that's never too late. And sorry if I'm being direct and hard. I just don't believe. I listened to a great thing this morning actually as part of my Mind Valley thing called life visioning, and you only get to decide. There's only two options: you're either a victim or a leader. Victims complain and you know, have a story about their past, and leaders create the future they want for themselves. And you can only be one or the other. You get to choose. You're either a victim or a leader. And so my real request to everyone that's online is you know, choose to be a leader and create the life you want. Do you offer coaching? Not one-to-one. Apologies, it's just not possible time-wise. And more importantly, I would be a terrible coach. And I tell you why, because I'm very hard on myself and I don't, you know, I always joke with people, you know, if we agreed that you would do something next week and you don't do it, I'd want to punch you in the face, which is probably not a good coaching technique. I'm very passionate about the inner circle and what Lee and I and the team are trying to do with the inner circle, with the WealthE University and whatever is, and all the courses and everything we've spoken about and the wealth insights and whatever is to try coach at scale. I don't know if that makes sense, but to help lots of people go on, but I don't offer one-to-one. I never have, to be honest. I think we should all join you at a wealth farm for an intense 2-day boot camp, including kite surfing. Rob, that wealth farm is at Witsunt. It's the 6th of November to the 15th of November, and or Teeson Island over Christmas. But yeah, very much so. It's I've made it as part of Scott 5.0. I'm also going to be living life. Like for my shareholders I've got online, and I recognize a number of names here. I've worked myself almost to death in the last 5 years trying to make this company a success. And what I've realized is I have to do it a different way to really unlock the potential we've got in this team, and obviously this community and the opportunity. And we're not going to get there by working harder. And again, I use the analogy of Richard Branson. You know, is Richard Branson or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos more successful than us? Like, no doubt. But I don't think they're working necessarily any harder. Maybe Elon Musk is, to be honest. He plays at a different level. But the point being is that it's not about hard working. And so to come to Rob's thing, you know, Scott 5.0 is going to be about living life. You know, if you want to come on the British Lions tour, you know, I'm there. If you want to go flip and climb Everest, I'm going to be there. And we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to make a lot of money, and we're going to be very purposeful on the journey. So I'm really excited about building out Scott 5.0. And you know, I tend to say, watch the space. It certainly got me to have a bounce, and Lee, you were part of it as well, because you said on Monday morning, you've had a shocking set of circumstances through this whole COVID thing. You're still stuck in Dubai and can't get home to your family. And you said on Monday morning, like, watch out, world, I'm coming. I think that was your wording. And that's the principle of Lee 5.0. It's like, right, there's shit you can't control and there's shit you can control. And how are you going to make the next 5 years amazing?
And it is just actually getting to a point of acceptance, Scott, when you realize that it is within your control. That there are circumstances you can't control, but how you react to them, you definitely can control. And that changes your perspective on a whole lot of things. So that was me putting my feet, because as I said to the team on Monday, I wanted to lie in bed with a cup of coffee and just stare at the ceiling and feel sorry for myself. And instead I put my feet on the ground and I said, watch out, world, I'm coming. And so that's it. That has been my week. I've lived by it. And it has changed dramatically. So I encourage everyone to find a new perspective on a way that you are looking at something that is causing unease in your life. So Scott, with that, there aren't any more questions and we've got to an hour and a half.
Awesome, Lee. Well, listen, thanks to everyone who's been online. Hopefully we added value to you. Lee, as always, to you and the team, thanks for setting it up. I love these webinars. Lee always puts pressure on me every month. She's like, what are we doing it on this month? I'm like, it's getting harder and harder because the easy stuff now has been done. But what I'm realizing is that repetition is the mother of skill as well. We've got to kind of keep coming back to some of these things. And as I said, look out for that. You can see the link, it's online there. Go and sign up even for the first one, even if you can't make it on the 9th, because you're then going to get invited to all the other ones. And, I highly recommend that people are part of this webinar series. I've really put my foot in it. That's probably the wrong metaphor, but I'm tired. But the point being is that I actually have to go and build those webinars from scratch. So like when I say Ray Dalio and the changing world order, I'm fascinated by what he's done. I've watched a number of his TED Talks and read his books, and I've watched Roger Hamilton's reviews of what he's done. And I thought to myself, and it's a very selfish thing, but if I teach someone else, then I ingrain the knowledge. And so I thought, well, what better than to go and study all the stuff and put together an hour-long webinar than to really understand. And Ray Dalio is probably the investor right now that I respect most on the planet in terms of where the world's going. So it's just an example. It's going to require a huge amount of work. A lot of it's going to be new, fresh content. And yeah, I'm doing it as much for selfish reasons from a Scott 5.0 to say, right, watch out, world, I'm coming.
That's awesome, Scott. Thank you. And thank you for your insights and your sharing tonight. It has been invaluable. To all our attendees, thank you for sticking with us for an hour and a half through Scott's coming as the voice in the darkness for the last half an hour for load shedding. And I know a lot of you had load shedding as well. So thank you for making a plan to join us tonight. We really do appreciate your time. As we said, we welcome you on the Wealth 5.0 journey, and we ask you to sign up and join us for our first webinar next week, Wednesday. It's going to be amazing. Let's find out what has happened between 2000 and 2020 and how some people survived and some people didn't, and what did they do to make themselves great. We look forward to that. We look forward to seeing you in our community on our different groups. So wherever you are in the world,
Lee, just before you guys out, just one comment as well is that please, if you get value out of these things, please share it with others. We want to empower 1 billion people through mindset shifts and everything, and we can't do it on our own. Lee and I can't do it on our own. So, I wish tonight that we had tens of thousands of people watching this if it was our value, and it's free. I mean, it's literally people's time. So please, I encourage you to go out and share it with others. We want to empower as many people as possible, and it's a collective whole that's going to determine whether we succeed. It's not Lee's problem or Scott's problem or Wealth Migrate's problem. It's we need to create the world we want to see, and that starts with each and every one of us.
Absolutely, and on that, the more engagement we get, obviously the harder I can push Scott to put on more of these webinars. So please let's share it far and wide and keep Scott as busy as we possibly can. But on that note, wherever you are in the world, we hope you are safe, surrounded by your loved ones. Be blessed, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Bye then.